Say it's Tanesha's tip. Coming all 3 speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. They all getting featured. Say it's Tanesha's tip. Coming all 3 speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. Yeah. It's your girl Tanesha, straight magic. The greatest book reviews, let's get at it. She not here to offend, she just honest.
Hi, and welcome to Tanesha's Tips. Today we are going to be recapping Boots, episode 7, and it's called Love is a Battlefield. Okay, so when we start, we are basically out in the field. The boys are putting face paint on to get ready for their land navigation training. And Cam and Ray are having a whole conversation about Cam's new bunkmate, Jones. And he's like, oh, I think he knows my secret. He knows that I'm gay. I think he's the same way. And Ray is like, how do you know? I think you just overreacting. And he was like, because it's the way he's acting. And so Ray is like, I really don't feel well. And he is like, just suck it up, basically trying to get him through it or whatever, because basically they are partners and, trying to get through this together. Well, as Cam keeps talking, Ray is like trying to really suck it up, basically. Don't work out that way. Ray ends up upchucking right on Cam. Then we switch to the next scene. This is Sergeant Sullivan and his friend back in Guam telling him that he isn't up next to get married. And of course, Sergeant Sullivan has his own secrets and he's not even looking to get married or whatever. He's like, oh, whatever. And so he says, well, I just want to let you know that they came to me asking me about Major Wilkinson or whatever. And he said, well, what did you do? He said, I end up reporting him. And then it stops that scene. Then it gets back to they're back in the barracks, basically. And the new recruit or the new bunkmate, Jones, is basically watching Cam like a hawk, basically. And I don't feel like Cam is wrong for thinking the way he does, because basically I guess they basically know who each other are outside of whatever, just from the observations and everything. Well, Cam is curious as well, like, what's his story and why was he in the support platoon or battalion or whatever. So being a scribe, he has access to the files and everything. So he goes into the duty hut and he starts sifting through the records. He looks on Jones's records and he sees that he has a history of sleepwalking or whatever, and got caught sleepwalking in his sleep. So as soon as he saw that, Jones comes in the office and it's like, what are you doing? And he was like, nothing. And he was trying to put everything back. But he also told him, hey, you can't be in here. Recruits can't come in here. And he didn't care. He is kind of mischievous, just like Hicks is. And so he was like going through the drawers and everything. He was like, hey, you can't do that. And he was like, oh, they got Werther's or whatever. He was like, I like this candy. And then Sergeant Howitt comes in and it's like, what are you doing in here? And so he makes up a good excuse real quick or whatever. And he told them both, get out of my duty hut. Really, Sergeant Howitt is really kind of being the nice drill instructor now because of everything that happened with Ochoa. Can't blame him for that. But anyway, he just shoos them out of the duty hut or whatever. And so they go back out and laugh or whatever and joke. So then they flash back to Ray being at sick bay. He happens to have on like a hospital gown or whatever, and he's laying back. He looks over, and guess who he sees? He sees the same female recruit that he saw before when he was at sick bay, and he was like, funny meeting you back here or whatever. And honestly, I love their banter because it's so funny. She has like a dry sense of humor, and she says just off the wall things that wouldn't technically be funny, but she's meant them to be funny. And because Ray is so uptight and his dad was a Marine, he doesn't know how to relax because everything is so serious for him, right? Anyway, the banter is really good. Then let's see. We get back to Recruit Jones and Cam. Um, they are back at the land navigation field, and they decide that they're going to be partners because Ray is obviously out of his sick bay or whatever. He drunk too much of the hooch that Hicks made, so that's the reason why he's in sick bay. So Jones was like, "Hey, they're gonna pair us up together. We might as well, do this together or whatever." And they or supposed to find like the boxes. They get coordinates or whatever, and they got so much time to find the boxes or whatever. So as they are walking, they're in pairs. They're having a conversation and asking each other, basically playing truth or dare because they're trying to get to know each other. So some of the questions are kind of crazy that comes out of Recruit Jones's mouth, but I gotta I gotta laugh because it kind of gets them moving along and learning each other. But basically, Recruit Jones asked Cam why he went through his file the other day or whatever, and he's like, Cam is like, how did he know that or whatever? He said you did you find anything interesting, because anything that you want to know you can just ask the source, which is me, right? So since he did that, that opened the gate or whatever, and he's like, I really do want to know about this, this, that, and the third. So the question that Jones asked, he was like, so how does it feel being gay in the military? And Cam immediately says, exhausting. And so Jones was like, yeah. And so then Cam asked him, how does he do it? Because it seems like he doesn't care, like he has an air of confidence around him and he doesn't really care what anybody is saying. So Jones said, no matter where you are, act like you belong. And I was like, okay. I mean, that's good advice for anybody, regardless, you know what I mean? But of course, this is the military. This don't ask, don't tell thing is there. And it was real back then. I don't know what they do now, but so then they flipped back to Santos and another recruit. I forgot his name, but they were paired together. And Santos said, "Hey, you keep going. I got something to do or whatever." And he said, "Hey, well, what if the drill instructors ask me where you are?" He said, "Just tell them I'm taking a hard dump or whatever." Okay, so Santos went off on a quest to find the payphone. Like he already knew where the payphone was. He had money in his pocket and he was trying to call home. It was all working well, and then he got caught by a lieutenant junior grade officer. Mm-mm. So then it flips back to the barracks and them coming back in. Staff Sergeant McKinnon ripped Santos a new one. Okay. He was like, "You think you can go out and use a payphone? What was your reason for doing this?" And so Santos was like, "This recruit found out that his daughter is having nightmares and this is her birthday, and I just wanted to call her for her birthday." So, of course, doing what drill instructors do, he was like, "Do you think I care about your daughter? I'll have you having nightmares and this and that." That was just a whole big rant, but it'd be funny the stuff that they do. They use things against you knowing that it's real, and if it was them they would probably do the same thing, right? But they have to use what you do against you and make you feel like real dumb. Anyway, they end up dismissing him or whatnot or whatever. uh Really wild. So of course, as you know, training goes on, and the next well that night, Recruit Jones did get out of his rack or whatever, and he seemed to be going to the bathroom. Well, Cam went and followed him into the bathroom, and he thought they were going to have a moment where I guess they kiss or whatever. And as soon as he tried to kiss the guy, he had pulled his pants down and started urinating. And Cam was like, "What the heck? Are you asleep?" Anyway, he put up his pants and went back to sleep or whatever. And then Cam, I guess he went back to sleep too. Next day, Sergeant Sullivan came in and said, "Who pissed in my shower?" And so the whole company had to come in and clean it. Because and then so Recruit Jones was like, "Hey, did I do anything weird in my sleep?" Cam, not telling the truth, he was like, "No." Okay. So anyway, again, training goes on, and Sergeant Sullivan decides to use Cam as his crash test dummy. Basically, they're showing head-to-head combat and how you use your your opponent's weight against them. And so Cam is supposed to be the attacker, right? And we know that Cam is like scrawny, so who is he attacking? He was like, you're attacking me. And so he went to swing, and of course Staff Sergeant Sullivan did the hip throw and threw him to the ground, and he was looking like, oh my god. So Sergeant Sullivan actually saw that Cam was getting close with his new bunkmate. He pulled Recruit Jones aside and said, hey, I know your secret. And he was like, what are you talking about? He was like, I know that you sleepwalk or whatever, and you're trying to get a medical waiver out of here. You want to go home. He said, if you want to do all that, he said, I could get you a signature from medical staff or whatever. And he said, but you got to do something for me first. So, um, so basically, Recruit Jones started acting funny towards Cam. He was like not really talking too much or whatnot. But he did say to Cam, he said, hey, they're gonna try to pit us against each other. Why don't we just go with each other, and it's me and you together? And that's actually what Cam thought too, right? Wrong. They get to the day where they have to do the head-to-head combat, and of course they did put Cam and Recruit Jones together. And basically, because they had a pack, he was like, well, basically what the rules are for, because Cam and Jones wanted to make sure that they were on the same page and they weren't trying to hurt each other. They're just trying to pass. Recruit Jones was like, just, you can hit me wherever you want to, just don't do the face because my face is pretty or whatever the case may be, or something, as he said. And so, Cam was like, okay. Well, when they got up there, it was kind of like Jones flipped the script, but he was trying to make it where it was actually believable. Well, he ended up putting Cam on his butt or whatever, and then Sergeant Sullivan was like, if you don't fight, you're gonna, this is what you're gonna go to the back of the line, you're not gonna make it or whatever. But it just reminded Cam of all the times he was bullied in school and all the times he got pushed and kicked and all this stuff. So they started flashing back to like the back. This was his breaking point. And when I say that he got up, charged Recruit Jones, and went in. He went in so much that it was like Sergeant Howard went to go break it up, and Sergeant Sullivan was like, no. But Staff Sergeant McKinnon was up top saying, knock it off. And so was Ray was like, stop, Cam, stop. But he blinked out, and he was just hitting him mercilessly. I don't know. I can't say the word, but you know what I mean. So anyway, they end up pulling them off or whatever, and they had to take Recruit Jones to medical. Staff Sergeant McKinnon went up to Sergeant Sullivan and was like, this is not training, and then walked off because he was really mad. Obviously, we don't need another, catastrophe happening in our company. You know what I mean? So all of that happened because Sergeant Sullivan, they say hurt people. He hurt, right? Because he did what he did to his boyfriend back in Guam and then left. But anyway, it was crazy because Sergeant Sullivan got a call from Captain Fajardo telling him that Major Wilkinson got arrested or whatever. And she's like, I'm sorry to call you at home and let you know this, but I wanted it to come from me and not somebody else. And she also told him, remember what I told you, if this comes back on you, I'll do everything I can to help you fight it. So, she don't care one way or the other, which honestly, what you do outside of work is what you do. That's your business. Like, but I don't know why they do this. This is crazy. Just a whole judgmental part of the military. But anyway, so with that being said, Sergeant Sullivan decides that he gonna go get drunk or whatever. After he gets drunk, he comes into the duty hut. Well, actually comes into the barracks or whatever. And before that happens, let me just rewind. Before that happens, Sergeant Howitt actually went to get Recruit Santos, brought him into the duty hut, told him you can use the phone, dial 9 to dial out. But if that phone call goes sideways, you talk to me first. Because basically what happened with Ochoa. Completely understood. I was like, that was big of him. He stood outside the door where he could have his phone call or whatever. And then that's when Sergeant Sullivan came in drunk. And he was like, attention on deck, everybody get up. And he was like, whoa, have you been drinking? And he was like, everybody at attention. And so obviously they all laying down. So, but they had to like roll over on their back and sit up, and basically like straighten up as a pin. And he asked, who else hurting? Who else body's hurting? And people raised their hand. He said, who's bruised and got black eyes or whatever? And people raised their hand. He was like, pain is only weakness leaving your body. They say that all the time. Maybe it's true. I don't know. But anyway, he was just on his little soapbox, gave his little soliloquy, and then he left. So then everybody's like, okay, I guess. So then the last part of the episode, they have Sergeant Sullivan at the bar. He called Captain Fajaro and asked her, hey, is the reason why he got arrested because of the tattoo that I showed? Because we have the same tattoo. And she said, that's none of their business, and obviously it's none of mine either. And he said, I ma'am. And so she asked him, she said, hey, do you have a ride home? And he was like all buttoned up, which means yeah. So he hangs up with her, goes back to the bar, and somebody on the side of him makes a derogatory accusation toward him. And you see him grab the beer mug. He's getting ready to go across his head with it. And then that's the end of the episode. Okay, I think we have one more episode left of this season of Boots, and then we wrap it up and get ready to see if there's going to be an episode 2 or a season 2, I should say. Anyway, make sure you comment, like, subscribe. Let me know if you're watching. If you're not, I get it. To me, it's a good little series and gives me some chuckles about like my time in the military. Anyway, as I said, that's the end of this episode. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bring your rings that may leave you astonished. And plus she do shows. She cover all like hands, knees, and toes. Don't lollygag, no, she just roll. Then it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Woo. Ha. Said it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Tanesha's tip coming all 3 speakers.